Hi, Garima. I'm happy that you get to join us here at the Speak Your Mind Unapologetically podcast today.
Thank you, Anna, for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. Garima is currently a director of product management digital strategy at GE Healthcare. She also has a Wharton MBA and she is a biomedical engineer and she studied sciences. I'm really excited because we talked previously and Garima Mathur had some really interesting stories about speaking up, persistence, and creating her own opportunities. And I want to dive into those today. So I'm really excited, Garima. And one of the things that we talked about, and I'd love to share with the audience today, is around your ability and what you've done in the past to advocate for something that you believed in.
I guess there are a couple of different stories that I can share about that. So technically, I feel whenever you have different types of positions and goals that you're working towards, sometimes it happens there's something that you truly believe in and you believe that it is going to be successful in the market for some reason, and you have done your research, you have done your homework, and now you think that this is what I believe we need to be successful. And at times it is that when you're in an organization that has multiple different priorities, that has multiple different objectives, and all of the leaders around you or the organization is focused on delivering something, mostly you will see it is aligned, but sometimes you'll see there are multiple changes in which the voice of the customer or the voice of the market, which actually you truly believed in, is now not applicable anymore, or maybe isn't the priority anymore. It may come later. There are moments like this in which you have to be the voice. You have to take the time to advocate for what you believe in and why it can make the company, make your organization successful. What are those data points? It is easier said than done because we work with data, we work with emotions, we work with objectives, we work with teams who are very multi-directional. A lot of times, very large companies like I have worked for have a lot of silos in which it is hard to see an overall picture. A story that I really wanted to share, and we have talked about this, is that it is you believe in is a great thing, but that is never going to be enough. You have to find the right parameters that you have to move. Data is definitely going to be the first one. Why you believe in certain things and how you are going to advocate your belief to others is another, a big communication tool that you have to use. How you tell the story, why is it important? Plus, keep telling the story. It's not that you go into a meeting and you are excited about a product or you're excited about a project or a proposal that you have and you are pitching it, you're asking for a resource or you're asking for funding to build something. And then it comes up that, oh, maybe this isn't a priority because there might be a lot of competing priorities with you at the same time. You have to understand where the people are coming from, what is the competing priority, how your objectives or how your belief stands across them, and make a determination if you still believe the same. Because if you do still believe the same, then you have to just roll up your sleeves and go about advocating for yourself. In this example, I had a product that I truly believed that it was going to be successful in the market. And I work for healthcare industry and I work for digital. There is a contradiction there. Healthcare industry is great, is moving at its own pace, but it's not as fast as digital. So we work with a lot of very old processes, and that's why it gives us a lot of opportunity where we can make improvements. Whereas when you see digital, it's working and it's going very fast. The products can be developed in 6 months or a year period of time. Some challenges comes from regulations, but you still have to be consistently producing new innovations and ideas and products in the market to be successful. So I was working with a product where I truly believed that was a requirement for the market. It was a really good solution that will solve a lot of challenging problems. And we went through a lot of changes in the company. And then my product came into a situation where I did not have the resources that I needed to develop it, to build it, to deliver. And I felt, oh my gosh, this is a very uphill battle and I don't know if I will be successful. Should I just start taking on some other products or should I do something else, right? At that moment. And I think something was my brain wasn't just letting go. So it was like, no, this is a customer need. We will win if we actually do deliver this solution. And it isn't that nobody is going to believe in me. It's just that everybody is new now. And I have to pretty much take not one, but 10 steps back from where I started and go back and talk about what is the value of this product. What am I delivering? Why is it important to the customer? Who's going to purchase it? Why it will make us successful? All of those things that you do in a very elementary stage of a product. It wasn't fun. It wasn't something I was comfortable with, going in front of a lot of people and still pitching, talking about it, finding ways to still continue moving, begging, borrowing, right? Resources. We actually can continue to keep moving rather than be halted. And I think what I learned from that experience is that every single time I came back with an answer that not now, or maybe a little later, I had to figure out what is the next step from here. It took several meetings, several communications at very ground level of that product, a lot of discussions, a lot of data points. And then finally, I was able to get the resources. And finally, I think what happened was people will help you if they truly believe what that is the right thing to do, and they can test your objectives right against all the other parties. But to get there is not an easy path, because at times, if you truly believe and you have the most details, you have to make sure that all of the people that are around you can come up to that level of understanding and understand where you're coming from.
I love that story, and I actually want to delve into it a little bit deeper. How many meetings? You said you had to do a lot of pitches. How many of these pitches do you think you had to do? Are we talking about 3, 5, 10
We're
pitches?
talking about, there must be at least 10 pitches, and there must be at least another 10 to 12 meetings in which, after the pitches have happened, right now the time is to how are we going to secure these resources? What do you really need? What is the skill set? How are we going to put together? Where are they going to come from? And then you have to just keep doing that groundwork. In total, it was not less than 20 meetings I probably have done with a lot of people to get to where we wanted to go.
20 meetings. That's a lot of meetings. And were these people that you were meeting with and pitching to a lot more senior than you? Were they peers? Who were these people?
Mostly senior and some peers, but mostly senior. I think in these type of situations, what happens is when you get into a situation where you're actually looking for resources or basically help to build a product or build a solution or build a project or work on a project, the resources are mostly somewhere outside. Otherwise, you would have them. If it was up to sometimes the closest person who can help you is your manager, because they understand closely what you're doing and they can be your advocate. But when you have strong, you can say, change in the company where the person that you work with is not with you anymore, and now you're the one who has to lead this, then you have to go and try to work with a lot of senior people and help, and they don't have enough time. The other challenge is that obviously they want to do the right things, but they obviously are much under pressure with a lot of objectives, and they don't have enough time either. So you have to find a way to get this communication, and you have to keep building upon your beliefs, trust, data, credibility that you have, and why this is the need of the market.
Okay, your boss wasn't there to actually help pitch on your behalf. And since a lot of these leaders, senior leaders, didn't have a lot of time, and I can imagine that being the case, how did you get their time? How much time did you get on average? Was it 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour? And was it their lunch break? Was it at the end of the day? What was your strategy to get their time? And did you make a formal presentation to them with slides? Did you just have a conversation and try to get them to buy into the idea? What was your approach to get them on board?
Yeah, I think a couple of ways that you can do that, and all of that. You have to do all that. You cannot really think about that, oh, somebody's not giving me time, I'm going to give up, because that doesn't work. You have to figure out with all these people first what their objectives are, what they must be looking for, what is the problem that they're looking to solve for. And you have to customize your pitch according to what they are looking for, how you're going to be helpful to them, and how is the product helpful. I think there have been multiple levels of discussions, and you have to find that network, right? In the company itself, it's who will be looking for this solution or idea. and who actually will help you. In general, you have to find this cumulative voice that understands and actually can trust your solution. Two different examples, but in one, it was actually pitching to this leadership on my own organization. So then you just go through their admin. The best way is to get through their admin, get it on their calendar. There is an hour. You always ask for a little bit more time than you need because it might be just cut short. You ask for, if you need 30 minutes, ask for 45 minutes or an hour, work with the admin, get it on the calendar. So there is a set time for you to be able to pitch. And honestly, start from the basic. You have to, what I did was I actually thought at different levels. Is my story understood? Is the basic question of why we're doing this understood? Second, what is the detail, like how? And then the elements of data, why? And then all of those things together can become a good pitch for somebody who will give you time, who's vested interest in it. It's just like you, there's a lot of competing priorities. But then outside of this, like outside your own organization, mostly the projects or products are not delivering a solution for the same one team. They're delivering it from outside. You're helping a lot broader audience that we probably are not considering. Go talk with those people, even if it's at a coffee time, a lunch time, or wherever you can find them. Talk about how interested you are in solving this problem, why it is a problem, what challenges are you facing. If you actually solve it in next 6 months, or if you develop a product in 1 year, how do you see this helping us or helping them getting to a better space? All of those little situations will help you. They will help you get exactly the resources you need, and then they become the voice of your, you can say, mentors that actually what you're looking to solve for. But the whole point here is that don't get just be like, okay, if somebody said no, or right now is not the right time, or this is not the right moment, this is not the priority we are looking to deliver, this is something else. Don't say that, okay, don't take a step back and feel like, okay, what happens is, in that case, if you haven't made any progress for 2 months, no matter what you believed in, it's going to be slowly forgotten. Because mostly people do not come back after 3-4 months and say, oh, we had a project started, Garima was working on it, where is it? Most of the time, unless it's truly needed, you're making slow progresses, you're providing updates, you're making that second step, and you're driving it actively. If people see a value in it, they are going to help you.
In that situation where you did get a lot of, oh, not now, this is not what we're thinking of initially, did you come back to that same person later?
Yeah.
You did. And how long did you wait? How did you know that it was time to go back to them with the same pitch or a slightly changed pitch?
I think what I have realized, right, at times what works is to keep making progress. So what that means is that if you are working on an idea or a project, even though you may not have all the resources, you may have some things. And if you truly believe that this is the value you want to add and this is the customer value you will add, keep making that slow progress. What that does is it gives you time and it gives you ways to go back to the same people, because you can now go back after a month and say, hey, I have an update for you. We have worked through these things and we have solved. Instead of saying that this is where we are stuck, you can say, now we had 20 risks in this product, or we had these 20 challenges that we were facing. Now we have actually crossed out 8 of them because we have made solutions, or we have identified ways to mitigate these risks. Now we can move ahead with these 12 of them. So you always have something else to update and talk about if you keep slowly moving and talking about things. One thing else I also have worked is, if you are somehow restrained in this example, and these can be a lot of hurdles that you can face, but in this example, it was resources. Instead of asking somebody for like 100% one person full-time employee, if you're asking for a percent of somebody's time, like 40% or 50% of their time that they can work on your project, is helpful. Because there are people, if it's an interesting idea they would like to work on, but somebody doesn't have enough time to dedicate on it, or their managers wouldn't be agree. So just keep making the progress is the key at times.
Yeah, so it seems like you came in not only with, hey, here's my idea, here's what I'm thinking, general buy-in, but you came in with a specific request, which was for the resources to work on the project, be that a full-time resource, a part-time resource. But essentially that was we had a very clear goal in mind when you came into those conversations.
Yep. And even if you have an idea at times, the what people are looking for and how you can actually gear people towards you, right, to buy in into your idea is after you've pitched the idea, what are my three next steps? After we have done, if you're ready, then here are my three next steps. If we're not ready right now, then still here are my three next steps. And then you keep moving on to those three next steps every single time you pitch if you're looking to make progress. Because if you can follow at least two of those next steps, there is a progress. And when you go to somebody, they will agree with you that, okay, yes, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and you can show that progress. Was this something that you were 100% confident about from day one? You knew exactly the process. You felt completely at ease knocking on these people's door, asking them to have these conversations, trying to get that buy-in, asking for resources over and over again, getting a denial. Basically, they were saying no, and you would come back a month later and ask again. How did you feel about that whole process?
No, I laugh because honestly, no, it is easy to talk when you reflect back, but when you're in that moment, it is not easy. I think at times it is two things. You are frustrated, honestly, and it's okay to accept your feelings, acknowledge how you're feeling and why you're feeling it. Because there are two things, like advocating as a woman, advocating as a person who is not really feeling all this confidence going into a meeting and thinking about, okay, I know. Literally, what you're saying is that I know what we should be doing. I want to build this thing and the market wants it, the customers want it, you have whatever data, but you're still, right, like trying to advocate for something very strongly. At times it will be taken well by some leaders and they will see the value in it, they will see your value and they will want to discuss it a lot more further. And at times either somebody's busy or it's not something that they believe in. We all have our own beliefs of how we can add value, and nothing wrong in it if they say that no, this is not something I actually want to work on, or this is not our objectives and it doesn't align. So what I learned was that taking emotions out of those settings sometimes is a lot more helpful, because I was getting frustrated because I wanted something and I believed in something that I wanted to do and I wasn't getting there. But at the same time, I started to understand that people also have something that they want to do, and this is not what they want to do right now. So it isn't an easy process all of the time when you're going through challenging moments like this. But what I think really helped me is that I reevaluated every single time I got like a pushback. I reevaluated, is this still the right thing for us to do, or is it truly I still believe in this given all the information now that I'm getting? And there are two things will happen. You'll learn more and you'll figure out, maybe no, I think the market has changed and maybe this isn't the right thing to build on, and it is okay. Or you will come back with the same determination that, okay, no, I believe this is the right thing for us to build on and we'll be successful if we do this. In both cases, you have to at least in few moments, if you're getting very frustrated, take a step back, think through, and then go back to it. And it is never an easy process, nobody knows. And whenever you are, whether you're negotiating or advocating or trying to be resilient in a tough environment, it is difficult. It is never, you never know. You just have to trust at some point of time that whatever next step you are taking is going to move you ahead from where you were previously, and just keep going at it.
All right. So this frustration, because you said that, okay, let's put the emotions aside and move forward. But that's a really hard part of the whole equation. It's probably the hardest part. When you say, okay, when they said no or not now, there was a certain level of frustration. I want to get a little bit clear on that. Does that mean you were angry and revolted and even maybe in your own mind ready to like push that? Or did you ever have self-doubt around walking into the room and pushing your idea? Were you ever scared of showing up and asking for these things based on how these leaders would perceive you, or maybe fear of failure as well? Were there any other emotions?
All of those. And we as women, at least it happens to me a lot, that even though whenever you're walking in a huge meeting, I don't know, you always have this feeling of that you're asking for something for yourself. And I think it is a very terrible feeling to have, because you're not asking anything for yourself. You're asking for the success of your team or your organization. And until you look at it that way, it feels like very it feels difficult to be walking into a meeting where actually you self-doubt yourself that, am I going to be talking about this? People will think, well, she just has this one objective all the time talking about this one thing. Or basically, why is she even talking about these things when this is not even the priority right now? And there are multiple ways you feel that you will not feel the same amount of credibility or respect. And at times that is completely opposite of what happens, but you only know it after a long time. But then I think like actually getting some feedback from the folks that you can trust and work with is helpful at times, because I have done this a couple times that after I came out from a harsh meeting, if there was somebody I knew in that meeting I had good relationships with, I would go back to them and say, can you give me some feedback on, how this went? And, were I coming out too strong? Because of course that is not my intention. I'm just trying to be extremely respectful, but I'm also trying to move this forward, which I truly believe is going to be helpful. And most of the time, a lot of times somebody has asked me to change my pitch a little bit, rather than thinking about this is what I want to do. Pitch it like this is how this will help. This will help the organization, or this will help you. Those refinements happen as you go through and you get some more feedback, but that feeling of self-doubt is very strong in these cases. And most of the time, whenever you're speaking to a new person that is not going to be buying into this idea or is not yet okay with this priority, you actually have this feeling of nervousness that you're walking in, you're going to be presenting something that is not on top of their mind right now, and you will just come out depressed, or you will come out a little bit more sad that you did not succeed. So that all these feelings are almost every single time there. I have slowly, and this is all the learning process as we grow up in our career from very young, when we come to this middle stage of management where there is a lot of competing priorities, you have a lot of different cross-functional teams, you're working with very senior leaders, and you believe and you trust in something, and you have to have negotiations, resources, all these different discussions. You learn, you refine, and you acknowledge your feeling at times, and you think, okay, I still have to just be myself and go ahead do it.
To acknowledge it, and you just go forward anyways, because it seems like even though you were going into these meetings realizing that they might perceive it as you wanting something personally, you were very clear that you were doing this for the team, for the customers, for the company. Was that your main motivation? Because prior to our conversation here today, you told me that this process, in the specific example, not only were 20 plus meetings in conversations, but also 6 months of insisting on this, even though you're getting all these rejections. So what kept you going?
Yeah, there could be a personal conversation too. Nothing wrong in that. And I gave you both examples. This was an example in which you honestly, if you're looking to work on a product or a project or something that you're working on actively, you like it. It is, we have to think through as women, we have to understand that this is not you. This is for the company, for the team. You trust the success. But on the other side, I have had conversations for my own promotions where actually I know this is for me and I am going to go in this conversation. And I had like a manager, very nice person. I had the conversation for the first time. Before, in my career, when I was like maybe in or more earlier stages of my career, all I believed in was do your work very well, be credible, you'll be seen. And a lot of times it would work. There was still networking that was needed, but there are more opportunities in earlier part of your career, and people are looking for younger people who can actually add a lot of value, and they are energetic about things. Since there are more opportunities, lesser competition, you get seen better, your work speaks for you a lot more. And at that time, what work was just basically trying to understand who can use my skill set and who can use this work that I am doing, reaching out to them. And then it's easy. It's, I would say, not always easier, but comparatively easier when you hit this time frame and you're in like middle management position. Now there are lesser opportunities. Having just doing the work, just being credible, or just doing excellent work sometimes doesn't work. So I had to myself figure out that, okay, I've been in this position for a long time. I have had a lot of challenging opportunities. I have solved a lot of very key critical elements, and including a lot of conflict resolution, including a lot of, you can say, directional strategy. So I've worked on a lot of different things. I knew I was ready for a promotion. I knew I was eligible for a promotion, but And it was a personal thing. Going in a conversation like this to my manager was actually, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about this. This is uncomfortable. I'm going to be asking for this. How am I going to be doing this? But I go into one-on-one discussions. The first meeting, I come out not even speaking about it. Fine, next time. And then the next time, the same thing. I go into the meeting and I'm thinking, wait, this today I have to talk about it. In the last, like there are literally 5 minutes left. So I talked to him for the first time. I was like, look, I feel that I should get a promotion or I can move to the next step in my career because I believe I'm ready for it and I've done a lot. What do you think about it? And he was very casual. He was like, sure, Garima, let's talk about it. We only have 2 minutes left and we have to finish this as this, but let's talk about it. I come back again. I was like, okay. The next time I go, at least I learned that it's okay to have that conversation. It was horrible process for that 2 months, like of me thinking and thinking. I go back and then we have this conversation. Guess what? All my time that I wasted to be ready for it by myself was zero value add. The value add when actually spoke up. Then my manager goes, okay, no, I understand where you're coming from. Let me talk to the HR person and I'll get back to you. Okay, closed. I don't go back again. I'm basically waiting for this to happen, for him to come back, because if I go now, I feel like I'm asking a favor. I'm very opportunist. All I have to talk about is my own promotion and all these very complex emotions. But we as women feel, but if you may feel whatever, but your competition, a lot of people who are actually competing for that same promotion from that same opportunity don't feel like this. They are more direct. They are there to be advocating for their own promotion. That's what I learned. So basically, while I was going through all this process, I saw two of my peers getting promoted, getting better opportunities, better salary. And that month, I didn't hear anything from my manager. Then in my next conversation on my one-on-one, I went back and I'm now literally embarrassed having this conversation because I feel this is hard and I don't know what he's going to perceive me as. What is he going to think about? He was asked about it, unfortunately, and then he was like, oh, sorry, I didn't have time to talk with HR. And I realized that day I was a little upset. And I realized that day that obviously this is on top of my mind, but everybody is busy. He was an awesome manager, great person, but he's busy. If I'm not talking about this for another 2 months, it's not present on his mind at all. That day, I learned a very strong thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to set up a time with you every bi-weekly. In 2 weeks, we can connect on this topic, little touch base, what is happening, and we can go from there. And he's excellent idea. Let's do that because we will both forget and it would be hard for us to keep focused. Let's do that. We had alternate week meeting. I actually joined a women's program in GE. GE is a great company that gives women a lot of opportunities to learn. And this is what I learned from one of my mentors, that the most important thing for you to manage is your own career. If you were managing anything, you will be putting off next. You will be putting meetings on people's calendar and inviting everybody who needs to be there, and because you're managing something. If you're managing your career, be open to have that conversation. It is not a favor. You're managing your career, which is important to you. It's important for the company to actually manage the talent. So it is both ways. We are all very busy. It's very difficult to find time. You have to be comfortable for yourself, having actively multiple conversations about your own promotion. And I think it was a great learning. Every other week, I had to go and ask. The first 2 times, it was difficult. And then I was like, okay, after all of this coaching that I got from my mentor, I was like, fine. Then I would just go in the conversation of like, where is the discussion? And then he'd go, oh, we had a conversation with HR and she's on board. We have to wait because we don't have budget, or we actually have to wait for the policy that there's a window where company will actually see the talent and promote people or do performance reviews. And then he was supportive in the sense that he was like, let's keep connecting. I think even though I didn't get anything that I wanted until 6 months or so, we connected every bi-weekly for 6 months. And the good thing was that even the connection was like for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just catching up. But there are two things I learned, that as a woman, when you are in leadership roles or when you are in this middle career, sometimes when you're transitioning from your earlier career to your middle career, not the same strategies are going to work for your career development. And you have to take the command in your hands, manage it actively, be candid. be open to have those conversations. Don't feel guilty or anything wrong about it. And it is very hard to do because at times you feel that this is personal or you are being opportunist, but it isn't. You're managing your career, it has to be managed, and you have to just continue to build on the growth that you're having. And sometimes it's not about promotion, sometimes it's about taking a stretch responsibility. Sometimes it's about, I want to learn like how you do a strategy or a session, or sometimes it's very different things. But sometimes it's about just, can you let me be part of some of these very executive level meetings or presentations? And all of these conversations where you have to ask something for yourself feels like it's not a lot of, I wasn't comfortable initially asking for these things. And I thought people will just give me these opportunities when they see me doing great work. But all of those things actually is just not enough. You have to just keep thinking about what you want to learn next, what you want to grow in next, and go have these candid conversations. And there are times that you will work with people who are very welcoming, and there are times people are not welcoming. And we can't let that get to us. We have to just keep moving, slow moving, keep moving.
So it seems like you did get an outcome from those multiple conversations with your boss, even though it took a while to get started within 6 months. But let me first share also my 2 takeaways from your story, which I think no one ever talked about in our podcast, and I think are really good points when it comes to asking for something for yourself, in particular the promotion or growth or something in your own career. Like you said, let's manage our own careers. One of them is that what you said, if it's hard to keep coming back to ask for the same thing, because like you said, people around the company are busy, they're prioritizing other things. And like you did with your first example and with your second example, one conversation is hardly ever enough. 2 conversations is hardly ever enough. 3 conversations is hardly ever enough. And no one's going to initiate those conversations if you're the one interested. So you have to initiate the conversation like you did 20 times, 6 times, 10 times, who knows how many times. So what I found brilliant about the second strategy was that from the beginning, you use that initial conversation to set the tone and schedule all your forward conversations until you got a result. Every 2 weeks, we're talking about my career, my growth, my promotion. And that was set in stone. Now that guilt every single time of having to come back and talk about the same thing when your boss hasn't yet accomplished his part, that guilt was gone because now it's there. It's scheduled. You use that first uncomfortable conversation to schedule all the other conversations. That's brilliant at so many levels. And the second thing that you said was the idea of you prepare for this conversation. First time you didn't say it. The second time you didn't say it. The third time, those last 5 minutes, which is something that I used to do as well, you finally said it and it came out in a quite casual way because you were in those last 5 minutes and his response was casual. And sometimes just bringing things up initially in a casual way will do the trick. We'll get things started because we know that's not the last conversation about the topic. That's just the very first conversation. And I'd love to know how long, since you started to work with that boss, how long did it take before you had that first conversation or your first attempt?
Yeah, what is interesting about my career is that has been a lot of, you can say, changes, transitions, and I've loved every position that I've worked for. I feel very, you can say, fortunate. But I think what happens is when you are changing all of these different positions and you're growing, that I've moved between a lot of different managers. So this manager was new, but and I think this is actually a lot of people face this because what happens is, suppose you're working with a manager and you're working with somebody for a year and a half or something changes, now you're with another person, you're another person, there's sometimes the continuity of these discussions break because you think that, okay, after I've been with somebody for 2 to 3 years, I should have this conversation. But that's not how I could have looked at, because I didn't have that opportunity. I worked with somebody and then I was working with the same product, or I was in my same job, but I just had multiple different managers. So then the challenge becomes that the person who's leaving can leave you with whatever notes and thoughts and but you're starting a new relationship with a new person. But it was a bit challenging for me more than other situations because this person was a little new. I had been in that position for you can say 3 years or 3.5 years, and I was ready. But I knew that it is hard to actually start some of these conversations with the person you're starting to use. I think what you have to build on is what your situation is. In my case, I felt I deserved it, and I had been doing the same, and I'd been taking a lot of challenging opportunities with my previous manager, and she provided me with a lot of great feedback, a lot of challenging opportunities. I could see that I can grow. Like, she was convinced that I can get into very difficult conversations and help facilitate those conversations, resolve conflicts, and do some very difficult product work, problem solving, etc. But the new person doesn't know. Now your challenge is that until we experience on our own, you could be coming very recommended by somebody. You have to have the, you can say, the strong feeling of having this conversation for yourself. And that was difficult. This person that I had worked with was probably like, say, 7 months. And then I had to start this conversation because if I would have waited for another 2 years, that would be like 5.5 years in the same position for a very long time. So that I didn't have that luxury. I was like, okay, 7 months. And I had thought about it. I started the conversation. But the best part about this, that this is what I got a feedback before he was leaving. I shared this story with him, and he was very happy to listen. And then he was like, you should have never thought about it, because I get requests from your peers all of the time. It's like, I don't know why you felt like this. And I felt, then I'm thinking maybe because I'm a woman, or this is how I feel or do things, right? But a lot of my peers have been having this conversation all the time in their performance reviews, in their one-on-one meetings. And it's a very common thing to do. But I don't know how everybody else feels about this. But it wasn't a very common thing. It was a specific thing for me to do. It wasn't a casual thing for me to do. You go in one-on-one, you talk about all your projects, you talk about your life, you talk about your vacations, you talk about everything. This was not one of those casual topics. I had to specifically prepare myself for, which eventually became a casual topic after I did it 16 times. But the thing is, like, you may not be doing it, but your peers are. That's what the learning was in discussion with him.
That is so interesting. Yeah, because it's what you did there, which is eventually share that vulnerability with your boss and learn, essentially have a breakthrough moment where you realize, oh, he doesn't see this as a problem. Others are doing this and not hesitating. So maybe it's okay. I shouldn't feel guilty about advocating for myself after just a few months working with this guy, without having to prove yourself all over again every time a new manager came in. I think that was a good move.
Yeah.
Asking for that feedback.
Yeah. And I think, it's both ways. So I don't think, and I truly believe in this. We believe that a lot of these intrinsic emotions that come in these conversations don't have a place at workplace, but that isn't true. It has a very strong place in your workplace. And you have to acknowledge it and you have to address it, because we try to brush it away. Like, we try to hide it because we don't want to address it. And it's both ways. The reason I shared with him, because when he was leaving, I was sad. Before I got a moment to talk with him, I was like, good luck with your new position, and I enjoyed working with you. Thank you for considering me for this promotion, because wouldn't have gotten it, right? And you helped me so much, and I really appreciate all of this. And casually now, because I wasn't under the pressure that he's my manager, I just casually shared that I was afraid of speaking with you because I felt that we had this new relationship and I didn't know how to have this conversation and how I will be perceived. And then he shared, like, no, and he was very candid, and he's, no, I learned likewise in managing a lot of very talented people, and it is difficult. But I also realized that a lot of my employees wouldn't come to me to talk about these things, but they should. And then some of this feedback was eye-opener. And then you can say that I feel that a lot of the programs that the companies have, this women's program that I'm talking about, my mentor said the same thing, that she gets a lot of requests from a lot of employees, and she knows a couple of people who do not talk about this. They should, but for some reason they aren't. If you are not talking about it, you're the only one not talking about it.
Yeah, that's right. It was feedback both ways. You had a bit of insight, he had a bit of insight, and learned how to be potentially even a better manager by bringing the topic up for some of the employees who maybe didn't feel as comfortable. But it's important to be able to talk about these things
Yeah.
and know that it's normal. It's not anything wrong with it. I think you used the word, but it's not self-centered. It's not being indulgent. It's not being unreasonable at all. You're just doing something. You're just advocating for yourself like you would advocate for anything else. So I think that's perfect. And it seems like you ask for a lot of feedback in general when you go to meetings and things. That's also helpful for everyone to know. And we are at the end of our time, but I want to ask you one last question, which is around creating your own luck. How do you, I can already see from the theme here how you create your own luck. You push, you ask for things, you get feedback, you move forward, and you insist. Tell me a little bit more about how do you create your own luck in your work, in your career, and in life.
When I came to the US, it was like in 2004. I grew up in India, came to the US like a lot of immigrants do. Nothing special about it. But what you do lose is your support system, because if you were growing in a country where your parents have lived, you have friends and you have a lot of this support system. It is easier to find your first opportunity. You can say, hey, can you please refer me, or can you introduce me to this person, or can you introduce me? When you're here as an immigrant, and a lot of us go through the same journey, we get education, we start to look for our very first jobs, and the most luck you need is them, because you actually don't have a set amount of credibility to show yet in your resume. You may have an education, or you may have some internships you have done, or you may have some teaching opportunities that you took in school, but that's all your resume says, or maybe some work that you might have done in your own country. It isn't enough. You need a lot of luck. Honestly, you need people at that moment to believe in you most, because you don't have those type of connections. Somebody say, I know this person does a great job. How do people give you even the first chance? So I think what I realized was that if I sit back in my career and never push it forward, I would not get any opportunity, not even the first opportunity. When I was in school, I was looking for an internship, and I enjoyed doing some of the courses that I really loved. So my preference was to get something around those, but I was open to get an internship that can help me really learn some more professional culture in the US and understand what was happening. It was a tough time. What I used to do was, and at times when you will see that there are a lot of career fairs, they can go hit or miss. So you go to a lot of these career fairs, or you go to a lot of these events, you leave your information and do a lot of things, but you may or may never get a call back. Small things like this. I used to go to every career fair possible. I went to all my professors asking for if they could introduce me to anybody that they had alumni network with. I'm looking to learn this area. Can I find someone who has worked in this and can share information? I was doing a lot of this. I actually went to a career fair and met somebody who was doing a research in MRI signal processing. And I was very interested in it. I just very genuinely, by that moment, honestly, I was like, I don't know, I'm here. Like, I'm here all the time. So I'm talking about what you're doing, and what I was doing a research in my biomedical engineering class, and we're having a lot of different conversations. And then eventually when I was leaving, I was like, I am actually looking for an internship, and here is my information. If something comes up, if you remember, can you give me, please call or email or send me an email. For some reason, when I was leaving, he said, here's my card. When you start to really look for internships, send me an email. I had many cards, right, from all these career fairs or everywhere I go. And I literally had sent out almost like 50 emails around the summertime to see if somebody's looking. And he responded back. It was strange that when I sent an email, he remembered me and he responded back. And he said, yes, there is an internship program. And if you do want to come around, you should definitely join this day here. I was like, okay. And I'm still thinking, I don't know, it's still a long process. I go there, and then I meet a lot of other people. This gentleman who actually had the internship, who I was probably not eligible for that. But in that fair, in that event, I met another person from the same company who actually was interested in an intern, and I got an internship. So what I felt was that getting lucky, or maybe basically getting to a place where people can give you an opportunity, you have to be in that place first. You have to create those opportunities for yourself. You at least have a chance. Otherwise, if you don't push for those opportunities, where after reading 50 emails, maybe somebody would have responded to me in that very moment of summer. So I didn't waste any months. I was finishing up my semester, I got an internship, I did an internship, was very happy about it. I felt very accomplished when I came back to school in the next semester. But it was a lot of hard work before that.
Why do you think that he remembered you?
Actually, I think he remembered me because I was very interested in the area that he was doing a research. But based on that, I do want to mention something to you. That at some point of time, what I realized having these conversations in networking events, or even introducing myself, that at times we are not prepared. We know who we are, what we want to do, but to be able to articulate it really well in small 2 to 3 sentences is an important thing to do. And I'll share this. I have lost those opportunities in which, candidly, I was having a conversation with somebody because I got a reference. And I don't think my introduction itself like really made me satisfied or happy. After I talked with this person, I introduced myself, I told him all about everything I was doing. I was like, wow, I didn't really even say a lot of things that I could have added value with. I think it is very important to practice, and come up with those 2, 3 lines that you want to say when actually somebody asks you what do you do or what you're interested in. Because the first question that comes in is what you're interested in, what do you do? And I give an example. In
Yes,
general,
let's do that.
I used to introduce myself. What do you do? I'll be like, I'm director of product management in GE Digital, or I product manage this, or I'm a program manager. What I realized over the period of time, that is maybe a good introduction to have for me, but it wasn't telling anything about myself. It wasn't telling anybody anything that they would remember me by,
It's
right?
not memorable. Yeah, that just stating your title is not memorable.
Exactly. I came up with a couple of lines, and again, my mentors helped me, saying that you have to have your elevator pitch. And there are a lot of names for these things, but basically, the idea is to be able to introduce very briefly what you do, what you're interested in, and what people will remember about you, right, after they leave. So I think, and this is how now I introduce myself. I generally tell people that I work on developing products that are solving very critical problems that the patients and the healthcare industry is facing. And I work for a GE, and sometimes people don't know what company. Tell them what company it is. So I talk about it. I work for GE Healthcare, which is like a $19 million company, works on making a lot of different medical devices that are really driving innovation in the industry. You're saying something more than just your title. You're talking about how it relates to the work you do. And then if I have time, generally what I see is, like, if we have 5 6 minutes of time, people will ask you more about it. What type of problems are you looking to solve for? It is in data, or it's this and that, and then I just get into a little bit more about it. Have those 2 3 levels of your elevator pitch. So then I go into, right, like that. This is my favorite line now, because I've learned it, that every single time I have said this to someone, they always ask another question. And it is, right? Like, at my job, I get to work with a lot of key opinion leaders who know a lot about what problems that AI or machine learning or these very new technologies can solve for, what different solutions we can bring together. And I really love this part of my job, because when I work with them, I see there is a huge impact that can be made in the healthcare industry, because that industry has been very old and there has been a lot of input from data, and there is a lot of data, and there is a lot of insights that we can deliver from it. Obviously, all of these things are not fully yet tapped on. When you say those 3 elements of your elevator speech, people generally will ask me questions like, what are the different types of products you have worked on, or tell me something that is already being used, or have you seen a personal impact from it? And the conversation helps people see where are your interests, what are you driven by. And there are elements of this speech that actually somebody pointed out to me, was that, and here is the best part of this, I actually talk about this, that the industry itself has been a legacy. So there is a lot of systems that have been very legacy systems, but the digital part of technology is moving very fast. There is this like meat point where we actually will see a lot of penetration, that all the digital technologies will become very useful and drive a lot of insights. And we want to optimize on that. And eventually now the conversation is very enriched, and you can leave a very meaningful impact.
I love your answer. And you mentioned a few things about your elevator pitch, and I saw that. The first one you said is you created an elevator pitch that made it easier for the person on the other side to ask you questions.
Yeah.
It naturally creates, even if you're bad at asking questions, follow-up questions, if that's not a good trait that you have, you're compelled because you bring in so many interesting factors. Oh, you talk about the industry. Okay, the healthcare industry is a bit old school, but then you use keywords like digital, AI, and you tie that back to the industry reality. You talk about problem solving, and then, like you said, that causes follow-up questions. There's so many different interesting elements that drive curiosity and natural interest from people, but it also at the same time positions you as someone who is a leader in the field, because you're talking about macro things, you're talking about the industry, you're talking about the problem, you're showing that you are a problem solver and that you enjoy that aspect of the work.
Yeah.
So it reveals a whole lot about you, your leadership, also your capabilities, without sounding like you're bragging at all, and activates the curiosity from the listener to engage you in further conversation. So that's not just a one-sided thing. You're trying to get that conversation going about what you do. Love your answer. And it's different from saying, hey, I'm a director of product management digital strategy at GE Healthcare. You know what? I should have used that to introduce you today. Maybe I'll just take this segment and push it back in the beginning, because that's a much better introduction.
No, thank you. No, this is, I think I've learned. We all learn. I think if at any point of time, wherever you are in through your career, the goal is to be able to learn to do these things, because they're not intrinsic to everybody. They don't come very naturally, and I don't know, but I have a lot of women peers and women groups that I work with. I feel that they come more naturally to men, but they don't come as naturally to women, because we're more purpose driven. We're more driven by these soft areas of our job and satisfaction, rather than the career, the promotion, the money. And then we're trying to find multiple things in our jobs rather than just one. It's a very different dynamic. That's why we need to manage it actively.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your persistence in asking questions and pushing forward the things that you're advocating, either your team, something for the company, the customer, or yourself in your own promotion and growth and opportunities, your own career, getting your elevator pitch right. And you also showcased how you ask a lot of questions, you ask for a lot of feedback, and you tell people exactly what you're looking for and what you want in every single example that you shared today. So thank you for sharing your stories. That's a wonderful example of how we can navigate the workplace to support others and to support our own growth. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and I hope it was helpful. Thank you very much.